XRP right now is red hot. It's sitting at about roughly $2.32. And no, we're not over the big breakout moment where we could get extremely excited. But hey, listen, it is a nice move on the last 24 hours. And technically speaking, the last 7 days around XRP and even around crypto has been pretty exciting to watch. I mean, Bitcoin was trading at about roughly 109K. It's still trading right around 109K. So it's just brewing for a much larger move. And with XRP, I mean, XRP has just been really kind of trading sideways, waiting for altcoins to really kind of wake up. And listen, $2.32 is a pretty good start for XRP. And if you actually look at my screen right now, yeah, there's a significant amount of XRP being traded in the past 60 seconds across the board. And one of the biggest ones to really kind of watch is, well, Upit. In fact, Upit is right now, currently speaking, hosting the #1 market for XRP at this point because the Korean market is red hot for XRP. In fact, the volume on XRP in the Korean market has flipped Bitcoin, which is just, I mean, it's insane to actually see this. Now, I don't know if this is fully updated. Let me actually refresh this. So here we actually have it. So yeah, $2.29, Bitcoin at about roughly 108 point, roughly almost 1K. Hey, listen, it's great to see XRP really kind of making the waves like it has been so far. And in terms of open interest, we could actually see open interest on XRP currently on the spot market in the last hour, about $58 million. The heat map itself, net inflows, has been around $46 million. So most of that $58 million is all inflows into XRP. So we love to see that. That's a very good thing to really kind of focus on because most of that trading volume is actually spot inflows. Now, beyond that, this actually led to everyone really kind of shaking up the market with posts like this. Justin, XRP holds the #1 spot in South Korea with over 132.59 million in 24-hour trading volume. And this is all through Upit. I don't know if we can see this. So we can see the volume. This is sitting at about roughly 127.6 million currently. So not too much of a big difference here. It kind of dropped a little bit, but for the most part, again, the Korean market around XRP has always been red hot. I think back in December, actually, of 2024, the numbers around the South Korean market were actually well over $1 billion+ in the last 24 hours. And I think that it might have actually been a little bit more because back then, and I think that we could actually see this for XRP as well. Let me actually go back real quick. So we have the monthly candles. So this was the monthly trading volume. It was 520 billion. And then in December, it was about $330 billion. So just these 2 months alone, we were close to $1 trillion in volume around XRP, which is just actually crazy to think about. But we could see how red hot some of these weekly candles were because these were weekly candles and they were $90+ billion worth of trading volume each week for XRP. And during that time, like I said, open interest around XRP on some of these exchanges, especially in the South Korean market, where XRP is a huge name, they were hitting multiple $1 billion+ 24-hour trading volume days. So love to see the overall activity around the South Korean market not cooling off at all for XRP. And they do have a good reason not to. In fact, we do know that today, Brad Garlinghouse will be testifying before the Senate Banking Committee, which is this is probably going to be, an event that we don't see a lot of price action from. We probably won't see a huge amount of announcements from. But the main thing is that this is an ongoing discussion. And it's a major, I would say, collaboration with the industry to make sure that we do get some legislation for crypto in a positive way in the US that's not going to damage innovation, not slow down innovation, but ultimately allow for innovation to thrive and for a lot of expansions around the US market itself with crypto to really kind of become a much bigger piece of the US system, because we already know how big some of these exchanges and some of these projects are becoming in the US. I do think that with pro-crypto innovation legislation, this will only continue to accelerate, especially with stablecoins. And that's also another big thing to really kind of focus on with, Ripple, with RLUSD. But we did hear from Brad Garlinghouse. He did say that he was honored to be invited to testify in front of the Senate Banking Committee this Wednesday on the need for passing crypto market structure legislation. He did thank all of the leaders of the subcommittee for digital assets. Your leadership, both with this hearing and over the years in championing the crypto industry, has been critical to getting us to this important moment. constructive crypto market structure legislation in the US is imperative in bringing about a new era of innovation and financial opportunity while protecting consumers. So love to see it. Obviously, having these individuals from the space apart with, those that are just around the traditional markets, this is something that I've always called for. Back in 2023, 2024, even going as far back as like 2021 and 2022, I've always said the best way to actually get regulations for the space is to involve leaders from the space that have been around crypto for years. And listen, Brad Garlinghouse is not shy to the traditional world either. In fact, he started out in TradFi. So, the fact that we're now starting to see collaboration between traditional players and even blockchain and crypto players, this is everything that we actually wanted to see. This is the best way to get to, really, I would say, a very good overall structure for legislation and regulations for crypto. That's, like I said, going to help it entirely thrive. Now, outside of that, let's actually go over here to the ETF talk, because we've been hearing a lot about ETFs for XRP, which is exactly why I do think that we are starting to see such a big inflow into XRP. Outside of course, the big events, because again, a lot of people are probably going to put a lot of weight behind this and just speculate. But, ETF approvals around altcoins are hitting 90 to 95%. We did get this update on June 20th. XRP is sitting at about 95%. And that's around Grayscale, Bitwise, Canary, 21 Shares, Wisdom Tree, CoinShares, and Franklin Templeton. Now, a lot of the XRP ETFs so far have been getting delayed. I would love for this to actually, change. I will talk a little bit more about, more of the ETF approvals that we should be looking forward to seeing this month. But first, I want to go over a few things. Number one, there's like about 18 different ETF filings now for XRP, and we're just waiting for something to happen with one of these. We do know that there was a lot of futures ETFs getting approved, and XRP did get one of those approved in the US. We also now have a spot XRP ETF in Canada and even in Brazil that's trading live currently, but we want to see the US market really expand around XRP. That's why we're watching all of these ETFs, and of course, once we get one spot ETF approval, I do think all of these will fall in line. And there's quite a bit of money tied to these players. I mean, overall assets under management across the board is billions, even trillions of dollars, some of them in the millions, but for the most part, this is a very big thing to focus on. But we did get a big update from Nate Garashi. This is with the SEC. Reuters confirms the SEC is working on creating a full framework to streamline approval of spot crypto ETFs. The SEC is looking for a general rule it can apply to all listings, and currently is going back and forth on precise wording with the exchanges, and you can actually see that within here. This is that quote that I just read, and the SEC is moving forward on creating a framework for how they'd like to see all these crypto assets included in investment funds to address the explosion in the number of ETFs now awaiting, a regulatory verdict. Which, I mean, listen, this makes a lot of sense. There is already around XRP like 18 or so. So, to get all of these completely under one regulatory framework, that way they could just approve them if they, really kind of abide by that framework. That would streamline everything, and it would make things a lot easier. Obviously, when it comes to XRP, I do think that XRP is in a unique position because XRP has been absolutely killing the game for the last roughly like 10 or 12 months now. On top of that, it is tied back to a US company, Ripple, which is expanding rapidly, and their ROUSD stablecoin is also becoming a much bigger piece of the US pie. And also, not to mention the fact that Ripple did apply for a banking license, and they have been really kind of making a lot of moves with even regulators. And also, they are a part of these heavy discussions, like, for example, this one with the Senate Banking Committee. So we love to see that. And again, I do think that XRP is in a very unique position at this current moment. We are still waiting on the SEC to drop their appeal. Once that is, completely dropped, I do think that the market really starts to open up for Ripple and XRP. But also remember that NASDAQ proposed adding XRP to its crypto index, #NASDAQ Crypto ETF. If the SEC gives the green light by November, XRP could soon be part of the next ETF. And big shout out to Cetus for this. But yeah, this is definitely one to watch as well. I think that a lot of what we're seeing around these ETFs, they're giving us dates to follow, but I think that it happens a lot sooner. Like, I don't think that we have to wait until November on this. I don't think that we're going to have to wait at all on a lot of these ETF filings. I mean, listen, we are starting to see a lot more movement, but right now, I even said over here that there sure is a lot of XRP ETF deadlines in July. This is all of those July ETF filings. For an example, we have the Rex Advisors XRP ETF. That's July 25th. July 14th is the Pro Shares. This is XRP and Ultra XRP ETF, Short XRP ETF, Ultra Short XRP ETF as well. These are all futures, by the way. So we have about, 5 futures ETFs that are running into their deadline between roughly July 14th to the 25th. And then in terms of spot, right, the big ones are the spot. Right, the Grayscale Digital Large Cap Fund GDLC did get delayed. They actually paused that. We're still waiting for any big update with that. But the actual spot ETFs around like Volatility Shares and Franklin Templeton, that's between roughly like the 21st. I know the Franklin Templeton one got delayed. We didn't hear anything on that. They did move on the Franklin Templeton ETF on June 17th. Outside of that, the 2-gram one, they got listed, so we don't even need to talk about those ones. On the bottom there, though, we do have the Truth Social one, which if you guys know about it, that's definitely a big one to focus on, okay? Because we did just get this update on, it was earlier in the morning, earlier today. President Trump's Truth Social files for crypto blue chip ETF that includes Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and Crow. Now, they did give us a full breakdown of the amounts here. So it would initially hold approximately 70% Bitcoin, 15% Ethereum, 8% Solana, 5% Crow, and 2% XRP, which, listen, this is definitely, a huge move. It's a huge vote of confidence as well on XRP. But the fact that it's 2%, listen, this is initial values. I do think that this 2% will grow in a huge way, especially once we start to see, big moves happening around XRP. And I think that once we get that case out of the way, I think that the market around XRP is going to open up in a huge way. But, this is, again, a huge move. It's a huge move. And it's at a time where we're still waiting on all of these ETFs. The fact that we have the NASDAQ moving in on XRP, we have now Trump's Truth Social looking at, the crypto blue chip side of the market and XRP being included in this. It just goes to show you how big XRP currently is right now around this market. I've always said it, right? Even if you look at the price action and we compare it, to Bitcoin or so, it's outperforming Bitcoin so far this entire cycle. We talked about that. It's outperforming Ethereum. Again, we talked about that. All of these other altcoins, if you look at any altcoin in the top 10, top 20, XRP is outperforming all of them this cycle. So it makes a lot of sense for these ETF, players to actually file for an ETF around XRP or even include XRP in the ETFs as well. But the crazy part about all of this, okay, is that July seems as though it's becoming one of the biggest months around crypto in the last year. I said it many times over that July was going to be big. I think it's even bigger than what I thought would happen because I was not prepared for, Brad Garlinghouse to be testifying in front of the Senate Banking Committee, which is happening today. I did not expect for there to be a crypto week, which is happening next week. I think that actually got delayed now. But on top of that, the Fed ISO 20022 FedWire service goes live on the 14th. There's a lot of legislation moves happening around crypto as well this month. And then, of course, we do get President Trump's Truth Social filing for an ETF with XRP included. We're starting to hear a lot of news around the ETF deadlines as well. So far, this has been just a crazy month for crypto. And I just think that at this current point in time, being an XRP holder it's so... I think that we're so fortunate to have been able to buy XRP under $1. I really want to say that for anyone out there that did have the opportunity to jump into XRP under $1 with us. But, right now, I just really do think that the market is brewing in a much bigger way for a much larger move. And a lot of people are going to be taken back by what happens with XRP this cycle. There's so much happening around XRP, not just around ETFs. You got to think about it like this, right? We just had the huge move on the EVM sidechain happen. There's a lot of amendments around the XRP ledger, a lot of expansion happening around the XRP ledger. Then we think about institutional adoption, tokenization moves. This in just the last 2 or 3 months, XRP has made so many waves We're not just talking about ripples anymore. No, we're talking about full-on waves. So now is the best time to be looking at these dates, following these dates. I understand that we don't put a lot of weight behind these dates because anything can happen, delays could happen, but I do think that we should be watching for any single one of these spot XRP ETFs for them to get approved, because the second that one gets approved, it's going to be a cascade around the ETFs. Every single one of them will get approved from that point on in a very fast way. It's just like the Bitcoin ETFs. It's just like the Ethereum ETFs. I don't think that this will be any different. And of course, XRP outperforming both Bitcoin and Ethereum. All of these filers, they want to get on board of this and they want to make sure that they're first. That's also what Nate said over here. He said, by the way, Grayscale can't be happy having a stay issued on their GDLC approval order. First to market matters. SEC holding up Grayscale Digital large cap ETF jeopardizes that advantage. And yeah, it definitely does. And that's why all of these ETF filers are trying to race. And I do question if BlackRock is going to file for an XRP ETF. It makes a lot of sense from their overall perspective, but we have yet to actually hear anything on that. But with that being said, guys, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.